Hello, welcome everyone. Sorry for the delay. We are just testing the different platforms to make sure that the streaming is happening. Um, Welcome to our second session in this series of reviewing papers that showed up in our feed and that we think might be interesting to our community members. So last week we reviewed this paper, rediscovering symmetry groups. Sorry, it's the overlay is covering this. Let's see if I can get rid of it. Can get rid of it. How do we do this? This is a new platform, so I myself am trying to get used to it. Let's see. Yeah, that's it. Yeah. So last week we reviewed this paper. The HD recording of it will be available from tomorrow on our Substack. So if you are wondering why we are doing this on Substack instead of just uploading it on YouTube, because it's already streaming on YouTube, is because of advertisement. YouTube has ads, and we cannot control what type of ads show up in our content. And the truth is, YouTube is full of content that are not aligned with us. So for that reason, we decided to upload our stuff on Substack. So from tomorrow, this thing will be available. You can go and check the recording, the review that we have done, or I have done on it. Okay, so let's see. I'm just checking just to make sure all the platforms are streaming. We have everybody before we get started. Give me a second. Already, all streaming. Everything looks okay from my end. Just looking at the settings over. Okay, so it seems I need to remove the overlay. So this is the paper that I will be going over with you. It showed up, as you can see, it was published on just a couple of days ago. So it showed up on our feed, and I thought it is a very interesting paper to share with you. So we'll be going over it. So basically the paper, I just realized that I'm not showing up. Let's see, how do I show up at the same time share screen? Let's see, it's not this one. Is it this? Yeah, I think this is better. Let me try this one. Yeah, this is better. I prefer this one. Yeah, okay, so this is the paper that I found interesting. During the week, it showed up on my feed, and I said, okay, this is a very interesting paper to share. Given that last week we shared about AI, this week I thought we could just share about quantum computing, and not the least, some of our community members gave us feedback saying that one paper at a time is better because then you have enough time, to digest it before, we recommend another one. So that's basically the new structure is one paper at a time each Sunday around this time. Okay, so this paper is very interesting. So it examines the difference between publishing code and publishing something that an independent researcher can reproduce, or another researcher can independently reproduce. They ask more specifically whether the software linked to a paper can be downloaded, installed, and executed in a clean environment using the instructions provided by the authors, which makes sense. So one of the most common, this is something that some of you will be aware of, one of the most common explanations of failed reproduction is, software being outdated, or, being like too old, for instance, and we know that, libraries, this is part of the experience to anyone who does, software engineering. Libraries change, APIs are deprecated, and frameworks are constantly being updated. So, one has to keep up with this fast pace. So the authors found that this thing was only one part of the problem. Indeed, many projects failed soon after the publication, even in freshly created environments. So in those cases, basically the packages often depended on assumptions that had never been recorded, or on code that might require a particular Python, small stuff like something requiring a particular Python version, a system package already installed, and so on. All these small little details. This is very interesting, very important in quantum computing, because as some of you who are coming from quantum computing know, a quantum program might pass through several things, like stuff like a compilation, translation, and hardware-specific mapping before the execution even starts. So any changes in that chain can affect whether a program whether the program runs, and sometimes what result it will produce, which obviously makes it challenging in terms of the topic of this paper, which is reproducibility of experimental results. In fact, the paper cites earlier work on framework migration, including Qiskit. Yeah, sorry to the guys from IBM, to show that software changes can alter results even when the code still executes. So that's one of the key things of this paper. So let's look at how do they conducted this. I have some slides with you, or be it some overlays for you. Let's see if I can find them, just to make it easy for you to follow. So how the study was conducted. So they basically carried out a large automated analysis and also a smaller manual study. Basically, they searched archive, sources such as archive, semantic scholar, for papers published between January 2021 and March 2026, containing the label quantum computing together with algorithm or software. So the survey reviewed paper, so survey papers and review papers were basically excluded. The initial search that they conducted produced around 3,785 records from archive and 1,686 from semantic scholar. After removing duplicates, I believe they end up with 4,966 papers. For the manual study, they basically narrowed the set to NISQ-related papers. So for those who are not coming from quantum background, NISQ means noisy intermediate scale quantum. This is basically the current generation of quantum computers. They are not the magic quantum computers that we hear of. The computer capable of breaking the Shor's algorithm, but nevertheless they exist, and we can run experiments on them, right? So these are so they basically pick up NISQ-related papers, so papers involving the NISQ hardware, and so involving code that were run in these devices. The other thing is they basically narrowed the analysis to a sample of 127 papers. each was accessed using basically 5 questions. Was the code available? Was the environment specified properly? Were the instructions usable, right? There's no point of writing something, if the instructions are confusing and no one can, people will just give up, right? Was the hardware described? Where is these amazing results that you show from your NISC experiments? Which hardware did you use, or was it a simulator? We'll see in the coming segments. We'll touch on that actually. Did the package run in a clean environment? So all these basic questions, these questions that are obviously pertinent to doing software, running experiments, trying to replicate something, are asked. So what do they? What's the results? Let's look at the 5 the questions. So let's start with the code availability. So they found out 24.4%. That is around 31 of the 127 papers. These are the NISC papers. Provided accessible source code in the in their analysis. 7.9% offered code upon request. This is actually, there being a lot of debate about this, especially when it comes to research funded by the taxpayer, say government funded projects that some people feel. I'm also partially of that opinion that, if something is funded by the government, the code, all the assets should be made available to other researchers so that they can, try to reproduce the experiment. So they don't have to be going through this, code upon request, and, who knows if you email someone, when will they reply, in order to run your experiments, and let alone schedule a call for them to help you, especially if the documentation, which we will cover in a minute, is not properly done. But I can also understand why they might do this, because very often, especially in quantum computing, researchers, even those in public, in like universities or publicly funded research, they collaborate with industry partners. So sharing the experimental data might not just be up to them. They need to consult the industry partner. So that's the other thing that I think it worth taking into account. Yeah. So they also found that 26.8% included accessible repository links in the automated analysis. 10.8% mentioned code, but no accessible repository, was available. So this is in terms of code availability. This is some of the key summary of this study. Okay, so let's move on to the next thing that I found interesting. The environment specification. 54.8% papers with accessible code provided environment specifications. 9.7 provided only partial environment information in the manual analysis that they did. So you can again see here a little bit of disparity here in terms of making making it easy for other researchers to reproduce the paper's results. And the second thing, the other thing is documentation. So they found that 61.3% in the manual analysis provided some form of documentation. 25.8 provided only minimal description in the manual analysis. 78% included a README or similar documentation in the automated analysis. 7.1% only had partial or minimal documentation in the automated analysis. So this is like the bigger chunk of the papers that they cover, not in NISC, the 127 papers they were scrutinizing more closely. The other thing I found interesting is, which is this hardware specification. A big chunk of the repository used simulation, classical simulators instead of real quantum hardware. And this is actually, it's for those of you coming from quantum computing, on the audience, this is not a surprise, right? Because, quantum computers, the current, there aren't money available, first of all, to start with. And the second thing is, even the ones that are available through cloud, they're not always accessible. You have to go through queuing, and they have to go through calibration, maintenance, and another type of maintenance, and so on. So they're not always available. And also the other factor in here is the cost. It's not. It's the current running things on real quantum hardware today is very expensive, which is the reason why a lot of people use simulators instead of the actual real hardware. So that's another interesting finding from the paper. Okay, so now executability. So you can see it's not bad. That 64.5% of the examined paper with code availability. Well, it's actually not bad. It's very bad. I mean, that this high number failed to execute successfully in a clean environment, right? This is the old thing for those of you coming from software engineering. You probably encountered this in the past or somewhere, where your colleague gave you a piece of code and you are struggling to run it, and then the person says to you, well, it runs on my laptop. And they can even show it to you, but then when it comes to your own environment, it doesn't run. Yeah, so this is also another thing. Missing or incorrect dependency and programming versions also played an important part in this. Hard-coded parts, missing files and undocumented setup. So this is basically, I would say, this is not to be harsh on the researchers, who do this. Is probably they are so busy, they didn't have time to really make it easy for someone else to just, take their results and, in a seamless way, replicate what they have done. Okay. API and the access as well. That's another thing that the paper highlighted. So one of the interesting things that the paper also did. This is not on the slides. This is just me commenting. Let me just for those coming up, because I know some people are joining just now, so you can see. This is the paper that we are covering. They actually, it was nice that they gave some recommendations to make it easy for people to replicate research. For example, they recommend complete machine readable environment specifications, right? So researchers should record the programming language version, framework versions, stuff like library dependencies, system requirements, data requirements, and the hardware requirements. And I would even say, where possible, the hardware constraints that they also faced during their experimentation. This makes it easier for other researchers, to not just build upon their work, but also do it in a much more effective, say, for example, not spending too much money, if they already have some indications that, a specific hardware have this sort of constraints, then that's very helpful information for the next people trying to make use of the experimental runs from the paper. Dependencies should be pinned to fixed versions. This is also, well, for most of you for coming up from software background, this should be like something obvious. They also recommend a simple execution entry point. Ideally, one command should be able um, to create the environment and run some sort of a representative example with a known output, right? This makes it easier to get started, right? This is also a common practice nowadays, especially for in the software open source ecosystem. The package should then be tested outside the original development machine as well. Another person, maybe a colleague, in the same department, should be able to follow the instructions from the beginning without relying on any hidden local setup, or possibly having to ask the colleague, I don't understand this, or I'm having issues. So basically they should do the testing within their own circles before they publish their code and the documentations. For hardware-based experiments, they also, which I completely agree, the device and the relevant configuration for the experiment should be recorded as full as possible. Again, it makes it easier for people to see, under which circumstances the hardware, is being prepared for the experiment. And also it gives an indication to the other thing that I was saying about constraints, right? The authors also recommend simulator-based alternative where appropriate. I think this is actually the default thing. Most people use simulators nowadays. So obviously a simulator cannot reproduce the original hardware behavior, but perhaps it can be used to test out some of the assumptions, to do some sort of a lightweight experiment and maybe optimize the algorithm or something before actually pushing it into the real quantum hardware. Another thing that they actually also recommend is that they place particular emphasis in this case on preserving raw measurement data and data in the phase. So yeah, so it's really I think a very interesting paper. I hope you found it. You will look at it and see what you think about it. The only thing from my point of view, this is one of the things that I will actually email the authors. Maybe they can come in. Sorry for this. So for some of you, sorry for this. So for some of you, I did cut off. It's just my connection here. I'm in basically in the countryside, so and the bad weather as well doesn't help. So yeah, so I'll repeat what I was saying about the paper. I basically, let me first share the paper just for those who are coming. So this is the paper. So I was basically saying, I'm going to repeat myself just in case you didn't get my previous thing. I would have loved that the papers analyzed, were broken down by quantum computing application area. Say, for example, is it optimization, quantum machine learning, chemistry, material simulation, or something related paper. This would help basically show whether reproducibility problems are evenly distributed across the field or concentrated in particular subdomains, because different use cases rely on different software stacks, data sets, simulators, and hardware access model. So this is definitely something that I would have loved them to have included. In fact, as I said before, I will reach out to them, invite them here to return to the community for a presentation. But yeah, this is. I hope you enjoy it. Reading it at least. I think a lot of it will resonate with you. So let me check the public chat if I have any questions. If not, then maybe we can leave it here, just to make the session shorter, and also because of my issues with the connection. Public chat. Okay, so we leave it here, and the recording of this again will be available next week in high definition. For the time being, tomorrow you can have the access of this paper that we reviewed in our first session in HD on our Substack. So yeah, thank you so much again for joining. Sorry for the for those on the other on any platform that the connection cut off. And yeah, have a great day wherever you are. Thank you again for being